Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another event under the Feel Good series and the events that I have been hosting for since this year on Feel Good. So today my guest is Suma, and Suma is an illustration artist, something that I can never do. So Suma is an architect and she's an urban designer and an artist. And she has completed her master's in architecture and urban design from Columbia University, New York, and has had experience working as an architect in New York and is presently based in Calgary. And now pursuant to her design career, Suma had keen interest. So she developed that interest and passion in sketching architecture. Architecture is amazing. You know, when you see these buildings, it's like you really wonder. Anyway, so has that interest in sketching architecture, busy urbanscapes and landscapes. And the art that Suma does is heavily inspired by architecture, heritage, and nature. That's a golden combination, I would say. And she creates a range of art from like intricate works to vibrant watercolors, and depending upon what she is working with. And now growing up in a culturally rich heritage, growing up in India, you see so many rich like buildings, and the culture is so vibrant over there. And as an architect, so she sees the world and the art she creates. So whatever art she's creating, she sees the world over there. So welcome, Suma, and thank you so much for your time. So tell us a little bit more about, let's say, I did give a bio, but a little bit about your journey. And of course, the main thing I would like to know is, what is it that pushed you towards pursuing art, and what does it do to you when you are working with a piece? What's going on in your mind? Yeah.
Thank you, Alka. Thank you for that great introduction. And it's so nice to join all of you in this Feel Good Summit. It's a really great thing that's close to my heart, because I've been through, like, art has been my savior with like all my ups and downs in life. So it's really a wonderful event. To tell you more about myself, like you said, my background is in architecture and urban design. So obviously, I observe a lot with in terms of like the art, the space, cities.
Mhm.
So this is more of my recent findings. But as a child, I was really very interested in drawing and sketching, and I'm really lucky that my parents spotted that talent in me. Like my mom and dad, they were very encouraging. They would take me to
Mhm.
these art competitions and events. So that really reinforced understand that you do have some special talent, which and the more you do it, you just get deep into it and you keep
Mhm.
doing more and more of it, right?
Right.
So I just started off doing drawing like as young as maybe 7 or 8 years old.
Mhm.
And slowly I was like thinking like, what do I need to do to be able to like do this as a full-time
Right.
career. But of course, I was not very confident whether I will be like, fine arts is something, is a big decision, right? Especially in
Yes.
India, because you need to
Yeah.
be really good at it to be able to make a living out of it. So I
That's
did
such a
come across
misconception, right? That
architecture,
is,
which is
yeah. Yeah.
actually, no, like at the time that we were growing up, it was I think now it's opened
Now
up,
it's
like
different, of
people
course.
are
Yeah.
so open to it. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So my like architecture was like a what do I say, a blend between like fine art, and you're still doing engineering, and you're
Right.
still doing some technical studies. So
Mm-hmm.
that's how I got into architecture.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like what I was doing in school, as well as like learning more about all these things that we never observe. Like unless you're an architect, you don't see some
Right.
details, or you see the world
Yeah.
through a very different perspective.
Right.
So and then once I got into the profession, it's like my daytime job and like my passion, so I just kept going. And with more technical knowledge, I'm like, you have seen my sketches, it's more of like places. And
Mm-hmm.
this passion has helped me also discover places. Like I love traveling, so
Mm-hmm.
seeing that from a perspective uh, of travel, seeing different cultures. And that's why my architecture or my sketches are more to do with different cultures, heritage, places,
Mm-hmm.
because that's something that we miss during life. We just carry on and we don't
Yeah.
see these beautiful things around us.
Yeah,
So
and I
that's
have to
where I am
mention,
at.
I must mention here that Suma's sketches are gorgeous. So, well, I will be sharing your website and everything for sure, but do all the viewers do take a look at her website. They are amazing. The blend of ink and the color is like is gorgeous. It's a treat for the eyes to see that. Yeah. So sorry, I had to put that in. Put that in. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much. You're so kind. So yeah, so I'm really enjoying where now I have taken my art to, is because it's a blend of what I love. It includes traveling, it includes colors, observing the world around me. And so I don't need company sometimes. Just give me my sketchbook and my pen, and I sit in a busy
To
street. I
go.
can like just go hours drawing the place. And that's a different way to explore your city. You
Right.
find these great places that you have never observed. And the sketching eye gives you a very like gives you a pause, and you're seeing your surroundings in a very different way. So I really enjoyed that. So this was, luckily I came across a group called Urban Sketchers in New York,
Mm-hmm.
where it's um, like a weekend. People get together who like to sketch. They go to different spots in the city and they just sketch
Mm-hmm.
different places. So that was perfect for me, like the kind of sketching I like to do. So from there, I've just kept this as a constant habit of like, sketching is something like a daily habit for me, where even if I do it just for 10
Hmm.
minutes, it makes me feel so much more better. Like,
Yes.
it's the end of the day. My routine is like, at the end of the day, just wind down just before
Right.
going to bed. I have my desk right next to my bed. So I just do even like 10 or 5 minutes of sketching. It really does wonders for
Yeah.
like growing your skill as well as feeling good at the end of the day.
Exactly. Yeah, I
So
have to add here that, sometimes, so from what you said, that you are maybe sitting outside the house, maybe you're sitting in a park, maybe at the bus terminal or wherever you are, and you have your sketchbook with you. So literally you are spending time with yourself, right? This is just you, your
exactly.
sketchbook, and yeah. So I have find in my practice, in my didactic practice, I find a lot of people do not spend quality time with themselves. So for all those who are listening, this is a message, I think, and I'll echo what Suma has just said, that spending quality time, and I will enforce quality time with yourself and doing something which you enjoy is so critical that I think it makes you more productive. It makes you more a much more a happier person. And like you said, even if you sketch for 5 minutes, so something that I do is, sometimes when it's a really busy day, if I don't get time to do anything to do with color or brush, I will just go touch my supplies, organize them here and there. You can always organize stuff, right? Just put them here, there, a little bit, your paints, your brushes, whatever you have. And even that little 5 minutes actually goes a long way. So it's that less is more concept. It really helps. So yeah, definitely. So those of you who are listening or viewing this presentation, something to really think about and reevaluate in which direction you are taking your life towards. And that is the whole concept of the feel good that we have here. Yeah.
Yeah, and your sketch doesn't have to be something like amazing, a finished
No,
sketch or anything. Just the
no.
thing that you just did something that you like to do. And that was one of my problems. Like when I wanted to do a sketch, it was something that should be perfectly finished. I know what I'm doing. And that would give me a block. Like many days I would like just sit with a blank page. blank sheet and not do anything.
Anything.
So I had to learn to let go and just do something. Just you can just put it away. You may not make an illustration out of it. It's just something you do it, and then
Right.
it's there because you. And that's how even you grow your skills. Like you may not feel you're good at this point, but the more you do it every day, you definitely will see, like in a year down the lane, that you have really, it's improved. And I've seen that with
100%.
lots of people online. Yeah,
Yes.
if you go through their feed, you can see that the more the person is doing every day, you can see there's leaps and bounds of improvement in their work.
For
So
sure.
you're
Yes.
getting good at something, and also you're feeling good about it. So that's
Correct.
definitely a daily practice is great. I know people are very busy. I myself, I have a little son, so it's so difficult to get that 10 minutes. But just before sleeping, maybe, if you can just do something. And it may not be sketching also, just looking through some other
Anything.
artists work
Yes.
also helps a lot. Yeah,
Yeah. Anything.
anything
Browsing.
that makes you happy.
Instead of spending time on social media, do this, right? Social media can drive you literally crazy, and it just sucks you, and it is a time sucker, and it is a time waster. Okay, not a time waster, but it can really consume you.
Yeah,
Instead, if something that gives you inspiration, and you like to see things which have been done well, or that feel nice to you, is a better way of utilizing the time. Yeah.
but I'd like to let you know, Alka, that it depends on how you use social media. So for me,
Oh,
social media
yes,
has been really a boon, like with Instagram. And like there was like maybe
definitely.
5 years ago, the amount of artists that I have come across and their work have inspired me and given me so much of inspiration when
Right.
I'm not feeling like doing anything. So
Yeah.
yeah, don't feel afraid to go and check out other people's work, but use your time productively. So yeah,
Productive. Yeah.
definitely.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. It all depends on how you use
How,
it.
yeah,
Use it
don't
in the
see.
correct manner. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, if you're looking at someone else's work and feeling bad that you're not there, that may affect you
That is
negatively. But
right.
then if you feel positive, like I think I can do this if I am putting in some time and just do what you like to do. I'm
Right.
sure, like, don't worry about the results at the after some time. I think you'll definitely see some improvement
Yeah. Yeah. Slow
in
and
the work.
steady wins the race.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll get there. Yeah, definitely. Okay, wonderful. That's good. So, Suma, what are we doing today? What are you showing us? What are we demonstrating? What are you doing?
So I have a couple of my works that I want to show because I'm not sure how much I can do a live demo of all the work that I usually do. What I do takes me hours. Like I would sit on an illustration maybe a couple of days, like do few like half an hour every day or something.
Right.
So it's definitely not done in one sitting. So I
Mm-hmm.
I could walk you through some of my work, and then I can also show you how, like on a very small example demo, like give you some tips on how you could do something similar, or at
Definitely.
least a starting point where you can start exploring these
Right.
like watercolor and ink.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
So
Perfect.
give me a couple of minutes. I'm going to set up my camera so
Sure.
that I can show you my work.
Yeah.
Can you see this?
Yes. Are you able to put the camera landscape, Suma?
I'm going to try. Is that better?
That's better. Yes.
And is it clear?
Yeah. Can you just move it a little bit more forward? Yeah, there we go. Perfect.
Okay, so I'm starting with some of my ink illustrations. So I go pretty detailed with my ink work,
Mm-hmm.
but for beginners, you don't have to even go into this step. You can start off with outlines and simple illustrations. This
Mm-hmm.
is definitely more time consuming, but I find it very meditative to work on these type of illustrations
Yes.
because it's like just so much of detail and the strokes, and the more you add to it, it just gets
Right.
it just keeps growing. And you're like you I find it really calming to do ink sketches. That's why I've gravitated more
Mm-hmm.
towards ink of late. And it's very simple. You
Right.
don't need a lot of tools for these type of
Mm-hmm.
you
Wow.
just need a pen and ink and good paper.
Mm-hmm.
So these are some of my architecture sketches, and I end up using ink for architecture just because of the amount of detail that architecture has in it. I want
Mm-hmm.
to capture all of that.
Right.
So these are some of my architecture sketches.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to flip really quick through these, and then I do some other general stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what I ended up doing. I would cut pieces of paper like small postcard size,
Mm-hmm.
so that way that would inspire me to do work. Because if you have a big sheet, it takes you more time, and you're like
Right.
you will never start with the work. So I started doing this where I would cut paper and keep it ready. So as soon as
Beautiful.
I want to start working, I can go. So these are just
Yeah.
like some lots of sketches about different places, travel
Mm-hmm.
sketches. And so yeah, and I've done lots of nature sketches too. I know that lots of people use watercolor for um, landscapes, but
Mm-hmm.
you can do great work with ink too. It's just that
Mm-hmm.
it's more time consuming, but you can definitely do a lot of good
Right.
illustrations with ink as well. So yeah, these are just there are a whole bunch of them. And then I want to show you some of my, yeah, like I did some sketches live on location.
Mm-hmm.
So something like this, like these are on my hikes
Mm-hmm.
to Banff and like weekend picnics, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've definitely like not completed the whole sketch on location. I have started off and then come back home and added more details to it.
Detail.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I always carry my sketchbook when I go out on picnic. So this is done live on location
Mm-hmm.
when we were out in Banff. So some of these are like it's a good thing, when you're out, you're just not like um, doing nothing. Like lots of people like hiking and taking pictures on their hike. I just carry my sketchbook and try to do as
Mm-hmm.
many quick sketches as I can. And if I
Right.
find a good spot, I sit and sketch the like them in more detail. So yeah, there are
Mm-hmm.
lots of things you can do with ink. So these are just a few of the ink works that I
What
wanted
is
to
the
show.
paper that you use, Suma?
So I have a variety of paper, and with ink you can try, because like watercolor requires a certain type of paper, but like this
Mm-hmm.
is like regular sketchbook that you get in the art store. I'm going to show
Okay.
you some of the sketchbooks.
Okay.
So this is like the just the basic one which you get in the art store.
Okay.
So some of these sketches are done on this paper, and
Mm-hmm.
it's fine. For ink you can use these paper.
Mm-hmm.
And then I moved on to like
So
let
we
me show
lost
you.
the
This is a
camera.
great brand.
Okay. Yeah.
Are you able to see? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
sorry. Um, so this brand Canson is really great, but it's slightly more expensive than this um, the Strathmore brand. So
Mm-hmm.
you can, for beginners, I would recommend for ink something like this. The
Mm-hmm.
paper is very light and thin. So for practice, it's definitely great to use this.
Mm-hmm.
And then now I have moved on to this. So you get smooth finish or you get a vellum finish, which has a little bit of grain,
Mm-hmm.
and that you can use for watercolor as well. So this
Okay.
is the one that has a little bit of
Well,
grain as well. So
mm-hmm.
this is a combination where you can do ink and watercolor.
Right.
But if you're just doing ink, the smoother the surface, the more you can do, like because it lets you use the flow of the paper, the
Mm-hmm.
smoothness, your strokes are much more free and loose.
Right.
So I'll definitely give you the links of all these materials
Yes,
so
that
that if
will go.
anyone
Yeah.
is interested, they can, yeah.
Yeah.
So that is ink. And then I'm going to show you now some of my um, ink and watercolor
Watercolor.
works.
Yeah.
So you can see how watercolor adds to like a contrast with the ink. It really looks great.
Mm-hmm.
So this is more
Wow.
of ink and watercolor. So this is like I think Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I still wanted to keep the architecture very simple with the ink, and then you can just add a little bit of color just to contrast with your ink.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you don't have to go so much in detail also. You can just do simple washes just
Mm-hmm.
to add color to your
Yeah.
sketches. So yeah, this is more of ink, and then just the contrast of color with ink makes it look like your ink work also pops out.
Yeah. Everything.
So
Yeah. And this watercolor pieces, I think it's fairly simple with
yeah,
the water.
it's not, yeah, you don't have to be expert level with watercolor
Right.
to be able to do these. Like you can definitely play around because most of your focus is going on your ink work, and
Right.
then watercolor is just to add the color.
Correct.
So yeah, lots of architecture sketches, and
Lovely.
you can see like with ink, the watercolor is just like an additional layer, but it's not
Yeah.
the highlight of your
Accents
sketches.
it's really nicely. The whole, like, it makes it
Yeah,
very vibrant. The whole picture becomes so vibrant there.
yes.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
lots of ink and watercolor works I've done. Recently, this is what I have been like doing. I do scan my black and white inks just to keep them because I like the effect of black and white as well, the graphics.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I put the color, I mean, so I just don't want to lose the original black and white illustration. So I just scan those in. So
Mm-hmm.
these are like definitely just adding in layers to your ink illustration.
So when you're
So,
saying
and
scan
when I'm,
black and white, what does that mean?
so before I add the color in, right, I do want to preserve like what I did as a black and white illustration. I'm
Okay.
not sure. I think it's on my Instagram. Like you can see the difference because some people just like black and white. They don't want
Okay.
any color. So I could print stuff for them with my
Oh,
black
okay.
and white illustration. So yeah, I would say like if you're going for color, make sure you make a copy or scan your
Right.
images and
Okay.
keep them.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you see like this little bit, you require a little bit of planning in the sense when you're composing your illustration, what
Mm-hmm.
is your focus, where do you want to use ink, and then where do you want to add watercolor? Because
Right.
for watercolor, you're trying to keep the surface clean without any ink. You have a light pencil sketch probably.
Correct.
So yeah, so this requires a little bit of planning in terms of where you want to use ink and watercolor.
Right.
You could go ahead and put watercolor on this also, but
Yes.
I like the effect of black and white
The
juxtaposed against the
contrasting is looks
color.
really
Yeah,
nice. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Beautiful.
So
Yeah.
yeah, there's lots. So this is so for these sketches, what I've done is this is Stillman and Bryn. It's a great brand for watercolor paper, and they
Mm-hmm.
have a Zeta series. So the paper is quite thick if you see this one, because
Mm-hmm.
watercolor when you add it, your paper might buckle.
Yeah.
So far, I have found this paper to be really great for watercolor and ink. So I'm able to do detailed ink lines with this paper, and I'm also able to do watercolor, and the paper is still like looking great. It's not folding or buckling.
Yeah. So we'll have
So
all the names in the description
sure,
for
yeah.
anyone who wants to. I have a question here. So Suma, because a watercolor, when you do watercolors, you are using a lot of water, right? So if
Mm-hmm.
we use a if because if we have done the sketching with the black ink, so
Mm-hmm.
doesn't the black ink smudge or nothing like that happens? I mean, or is there a specific type of ink that you're using so that the
Oh,
black
sure.
color?
Yeah, I was going to
Perfect.
walk you through that after
Okay.
I show you the sketches. So
Okay.
these are
Super.
ink and watercolor. And
Yeah.
just to show you what would just watercolor look like, I'm going to show you some illustrations which I did. These are just watercolor. So if you see this, there's no
Mm-hmm.
ink in this.
Right.
So I do a pencil sketch and then just use directly watercolor. So
Okay.
there's no ink, and you can definitely see the difference. But for this, I think you need to have a little bit more practice with watercolor to be able to do the washes, the blending of the washes.
Mm-hmm.
So this maybe when you're a little bit more comfortable with watercolor, you
Mm-hmm.
could do like some of these landscapes. Like if you see all these details, they're
Mm-hmm.
all done in watercolor. There's no ink outlines. So this is more like, I would say, down the line you could experiment with doing just watercolor once you're more comfortable with doing
Yeah.
just watercolor without the
Mhm.
ink.
Right.
So well for landscapes and more of nature sketches, because there's no hard edges that you need to draw with ink.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas for architecture illustrations, I would say like for buildings and all of that, you would want to put in some ink outlines and then use
Mm-hmm.
watercolor to just add color to it.
Okay.
So those are examples of what you can do with ink and watercolor. And then I can now show you some of the material that I use.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so this is the ink that I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It's a waterproof ink,
Okay.
and so this is great because uh, this doesn't smudge. So you have the freedom to add watercolor washes after you do your ink work.
Okay. Can you show
So
the
this
brand
is
name a
great,
little
and it
closer? So it's Black Noodles ink. Nood
yeah, it
Noodlers ink.
is Noodler's ink. Yeah.
Okay.
And I think now they have a red or a sepia color as well. So you
Okay.
could, I haven't experimented with anything other than black at, but that is another thing that could add color to your
Where
illustrations.
where can you buy this
The
ink?
only thing is this you is pretty commonly available on Amazon, or
Oh,
I
okay.
think like art stores you could try. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure they do have this, or other brands of waterproof ink.
Oh, okay.
But I have bought all my material, most of because I'm not sure if all art supply stores carry all these specific because I know people are, it's not very common to use the fountain pen and ink. So I'm going to show you what pens I use for
So my internet is hanging a little bit. Suma, your internet is hanging a little bit.
Cut and join the session.
Yeah, you can leave and come back.
So so I was talking about the pens for ink. So these are the ones that I started off. Is it clear? Yeah, so this is the
Yeah.
brand
Okay, one
mic.
second.
Okay,
I
now
will need
fine.
you to turn your camera again. It's still like vertical. You have to make it landscape.
Hmm.
Why is it still showing me portrait?
Let me just check if I need to. Yeah, it's for some reason it's not showing me that
Is
it's
your
going
is
into
your thing
portrait.
locked? Is the orientation locked?
No, I unlocked it, so I'm not sure why it's. Is it now? Is it okay?
Yeah. And
Is it
where have
okay
you
now?
where have you put the camera, on the side or in the front?
I put it right above my workspace, and it's horizontal. My
Okay.
phone is horizontal, so I'm not sure why it's. Is it still in portrait mode?
Yeah.
How about now?
Okay. Yeah. Now it's fine. And I
Yeah.
think you have your 1 second. Yeah. You have your stand right in front of me. Right. I can see. Is it the so if you can move that a little bit back, the black stand, I can see the bottom. Okay. Yes. There we go. Okay.
Okay.
Now I think we're good. Yeah.
Yeah. So these were the pens I was talking about. So
The
this is what
micron pins.
yeah, this is what I started off with. So they are great for like, let me show you how, like the really thin ones, they give you really thin lines. You can see that. And then you get a variation of thicknesses in your pen. So you can use different pens to give you different weight in your ink
We
stroke.
can't see, Suma, is it possible for you to zoom it? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so this is the thicker pen,
Can
and this
you
is
can you zoom your camera so that it just gets closer to the paper?
yeah, I could. Does that work?
That's better. Yes.
Okay. So yeah, so these pens are not really waterproof, but you
Mhm.
could definitely use them for ink, and they are not very expensive. And these you get in the art store. But
Yeah, micron
I
pen, I've
came
seen. Yeah.
across, yeah, and there is another brand as well, Stedler. That's a good one too. But
Mm-hmm.
I have moved on. I don't use these a lot now. I use this fountain pen. It's a great pen. It's a German brand, Lamy. Lamy is the name of the pen.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like this because it has this old-fashioned
Okay.
nib, and then it's really long, so it gives me really a great control over my strokes.
Mm-hmm.
And then the
So
flow
does it
with
have a
the
cartridge?
ink.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no, you
Oh,
it comes with a cartridge, but you could buy the one which has a refill barrel. So
okay.
this is the one that allows you to fill the ink into the. So that's why I have this waterproof ink, and
Okay.
then I fill it with my fountain pen. So that's the advantage of using a fountain pen, is you could
Okay.
use the waterproof ink if you want to do watercolor washes later.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's the material for ink. Is pretty much, it's just experiment with paper, and then you have different pens and the ink,
Mhm.
and you are good to go. You can like create a lot of great stuff with
Perfect.
that. And in terms of watercolor, I just I am right now just using a very basic watercolor set that I got from a regular art store. It's a
Mm-hmm.
very common brand
Is
available in
one
the art
okay.
store. Yeah, and it's not a professional grade, but for beginners, this is good enough.
Good
And
start.
it
Yeah.
has good color strength and transparency.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not confident, this I bought like maybe 10 years ago. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like 24 color set. But you can, like, as you go in watercolor, you can mix your own colors. Like if you have the basic primary yellow, green, and blue, you can
Right.
create a lot of colors out of it. So you don't need to go and buy this big set. But
Okay.
if you're a beginner, you're not sure about mixing colors, you can buy this set, which gives you a lot of variation in the colors, and then you can create much more
Right.
colorful images. And this is something I'm using now with my ink. It's metallic watercolors. So you
Oh,
just
okay.
want to add some, it looks great with ink. I've not used it on regular watercolor. So just adding a little bit of metallics with your ink, uh, it really looks good.
Mm-hmm.
And this, I have not able to find this anywhere here in Canada or the US. This is my watercolor sheets that I got in India. It's, I think, probably 20 years old. But the great thing about this is concentrated pigment on a sheet of paper. So you just
Ah,
wet the paper and you
okay.
get the pigment on. So it's very much like markers, but
Right.
it gives you that fluidity too. So you get really bright colors in this.
Mhm.
And
I've
I
never
have
seen
not been
this.
able to,
Yeah.
yeah. So I do know that there's a new brand that's come up in India, but they are shipping it worldwide. But I've just been using this so far, so I'm looking to try that other brand. I can give
Okay.
that
So
as
yeah,
well.
just let us know the brand and we'll put it in the list of the
Sure.
supplies. Yeah.
And lastly, I think in the material, it is my brushes. I
Right.
know people have a huge collection of brushes. I don't. I really like just these few. So this is what I use. This is an Escoda brand of watercolor brush, and they have this really soft brush. And this is actually synthetic brush tip, but it imitates like the natural hair watercolor brushes,
Mm-hmm.
uh, in terms of how much of water it holds and the softness of the brush. So
Okay.
the synthetic hair one, you don't get this really, they don't come in really this soft texture. So
Okay.
this brand is really good with that. So they could, you could try Escoda. This is a size 12 and I have a size 8. You could buy
Okay.
natural sable hair as well, but they are very expensive. So for beginners, I would say try these brushes. And then as you get better with watercolor, you can buy, because each brush is like $35 or $40.
Yeah, they can
The
get
really
very
good
pricey.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So for beginners, I have been able to create all these illustrations with these brushes. And
Okay.
one good thing about these brushes is that you can, like when you're traveling, you can uh, close your pens and you can carry it with you. I mean, close your
Mm-hmm.
brushes. So it's good for a travel set. So I have like a small travel kit that I carry with me on
Yeah.
my trips. And then I just put all my brushes. It's easy to carry. Like I have a small watercolor set that this is what I carry when I go out on
Okay.
sketching.
Ah, okay.
So it's
It's
like
very portable.
really handy and tiny.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I refill the paints when they get finished. I just add more paint into the pans in the
Mm-hmm.
box. So these you can do if you're planning to do traveling and do watercolor. But if you're
Right.
just sitting at home and you want to practice, then you can use just any watercolor set. And lastly, this is my palette. I just bought one which has a lot of slots, and I've put in my colors and I've kept these two slots for mixing.
Okay.
So if you have something basic like this that gives you a lot of space to add in colors and mix them, then
Oh,
it's
okay.
really handy to have something like this.
Okay. Suma,
Yeah.
what about watercolor pencils? What are your thoughts on that?
I have used them very, like I have not used them a lot. I
Mm-hmm.
do have them like the Stedler set, but I maybe it's the way I've used them that I'm very heavy with my strokes. So I
Okay.
think I could not get that free fluid blend.
Oh, okay.
But if you are able to make a light strokes, then maybe that is something that you could try. It's
Correct.
definitely easier to carry around, like when you're traveling. Yeah, you could get
Yeah.
the watercolor set and then just, so for that I had got this pen. I probably I didn't show you that, but I have not used it very frequently. This is like a uh, brush pen.
Mm-hmm.
So it has a slot where you can fill water, and
Mm-hmm.
then you just press the water when you're painting.
Mm-hmm.
So like for the watercolor pencils, this
Mm-hmm.
would be a good thing just to make it a little wet, your
Or
pencils,
paper,
and like
yeah.
you can see adding water to your,
Right.
yeah. But this, the tip is not really that great, but this is
Mm.
something you could use if you're going to do travel sketching for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
But if we are doing so, and I think today we are focusing more on trying to take time to yourself and do something at home,
Yeah.
then maybe you can just use basic material.
Right. So
Okay,
what is the
so
project you're
that's
working on today?
yeah. So I was thinking of showing you something very simple like this. This is like just a practice illustration I did, and
Mm-hmm.
then I was just going to show you like how I do my strokes
Okay.
for ink illustrations.
Okay.
So it's something very simple. Let me
Well, it looks very
get
complicated.
my sheet. No, it's not. You just have to take it one step at a time.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just pulling up my image. So I have, okay, I just did a rough pencil outline
Mhm.
um, of this hibiscus flower. And I'm going to show you how you can do a simple ink illustration of this,
So
and
what
then
is the base
probably
that you're
add.
clipping the paper on?
It's just another old sketchbook, but
Okay.
you could buy. I usually tape my sketch to my work surface, but since
Mm-hmm.
this is ink, right? So I'm not like watercolor. It would make sense to put some, and I use this tape for my watercolor sketches.
Mm-hmm.
So I this is very easy to peel off. So it gives
Yeah.
you a neat border around your work.
Border as well. Yeah.
So yeah, this brand is really great. It's Scotch Expressions.
Mm-hmm.
It's good. It doesn't mess with the paper when you're peeling it off. So I found
Modge.
that to be
You said
great.
Modge expressions?
Scotch.
Scotch. Oh yeah, Scotch, right. Yeah, Scotch tape is there available.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And in that they have these really tiny ones. This is good enough for watercolor.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay, so what I usually do is I just do a rough outline of my illustration like this. And then, yeah, you can just start outlining your
So that means
pencil
you
outline.
can take any image and just
Yeah,
do a rough sketch of on it on the paper and then start outlining it, right?
yes, yes. I don't have my image. It's on my screen here.
That's fine. It's okay.
Yeah, it's just like you can pick in, and I usually take inspiration from a couple of images. Like I scan through 10 different flowers and maybe make a composite image out of all of them, and
Right.
then like do my sketch. So it's just not like you're doing one image and then just copying it. So yeah, so definitely start with a simple outline, and then I'm going to show how,
So
as you
the
add
design
layers of,
that yeah, this design that you're doing, this is a kind of beginner one, right?
yeah, this is
Okay.
really very simple. So you don't have, and there's, you can go to as much detail as you want with your illustration. So
Yeah.
I've seen people, and I have done this too, where you just do this outline and then you just fill it with watercolor. You can
Oh,
just do only that and you will still it'll be a great illustration. But if you
right.
want to add more details, more lines, you can just keep adding more and more details to it.
Okay.
So, for example, and what I do is, this is a technique I have uh, figured out so that I don't have to buy a fine tip pen, because fine tip, this is a medium nib and you get a fine nib as well. So to get more delicate and thin lines. So what I do is I usually just turn my pen the other way,
Okay.
and you're able to do much thinner
Finer
lines.
line. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so if you see, you can just vary like how close you, and with ink it's just about it's more like, maybe I would say, playing with the graphics. So how close you want your lines, how far you want it, you can just vary it. And the closer your lines are, you have a darker shade, and the further your lines are, you have it's lighter. And then
Right.
you can break up your lines into like thin lines, thick lines, dash lines, or continuous lines. Each
Okay.
thing gives you a different effect. So yeah, this is what ink is. There's nothing much to it other than like strokes. I do know people who do stippling as well. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not really great with that. I like to do more of strokes, but you
Mm-hmm.
could like, there are people who do stippling to get the shade. That is a different effect as well. So this is stippling. So you would do closer dots for a darker shade, and
Mm-hmm.
spread your dots away so that you get a lighter shade. So yeah, that's I'm going to just quickly do maybe a few strokes to show how that ink lines add to the like the details of the illustration.
Okay.
And then I can show how we can add watercolor to
Colors
this,
to this.
and
Yeah.
it just makes it much more brighter.
Yeah. So just turn on some music, some nice music, sit down with your pen and paper and ink and just start.
Yeah, I listen to a lot of audiobooks. So when I'm doing this, I just have my audiobooks playing, and then I'm
Right.
like listening to my books. Yeah, you could definitely listen to music, and it's yeah, it's not like you're using your you have to keep thinking a lot when you're doing this, right? So you can definitely multitask. You can draw, you can listen to your favorite podcast as you're doing this, you can listen to music, and
It's very
yeah, you
meditative in
can.
nature, right? Because you are just relaxing, you're focusing on completing your project, the lines and the repetitive movements, I think make the whole
Yes.
experience very meditative.
Yeah, like I said, I have graduated, and like I don't know, I've feel like I want to do more of ink, because I do love watercolor, but watercolor still, I think I have to put in some focus and energy, because when you are doing watercolor, you need to think where you're putting your water, how you're blending. So it's
Right.
not as like, I could do it at the end of the day, makes me relax doing something like this. But watercolor, sometimes you're like, it stresses me out sometimes, watercolor, because it's really sometimes it clicks, sometimes it doesn't. So when I'm more relaxed, like on a weekend, and I'm not doing anything, and I have a couple of hours to spend, that's when I actually sit down to do watercolor. But if it's just like 10 minutes at the end of the day, I usually just do ink. And I do a couple of illustrations simultaneously. So today I'm doing this, and then tomorrow I'm doing like a small portion on another illustration. And then when I have them ready, and on the weekend when I have more time, I add some watercolor to the illustrations.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
See the flower coming up.
and you can see like, just by adding so many lines, you're still
Details,
like
yeah.
defining where the three-dimensional um, so this is the best thing for beginners. You just, all you have to do is keep drawing and adding details, and it just gets better every time you add more strokes to your
Right.
illustration.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people do mandala as well with
Mm-hmm.
ink.
Yes.
I used to do a lot of that earlier too, but now since I do so many architecture sketches and um, like I do more illustrations out of things that I observe, I have not been doing a lot of mandala. But yeah, for people who just like doing the graphics with ink, you can definitely try doing mandala. Zentangle is another thing that
Yeah, there
is
is
really
a
great with ink.
there's a Zentangle session actually in this Feel Good Day. I have a session on Zentangle. I really love mandalas.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
have
they
seen
are a lot
great
of
work,
fun. Yeah, yeah.
So, and for people who are not confident with like shading or uh, like where do I put the strokes, and if you're not confident about that, you can even start with mandalas and get comfortable with ink, and then you
Great.
can probably move on to doing other things like this. So yeah, you can uh, just keep adding. And there's a great event that I take part in every year.
Mm-hmm.
It's called Inktober. Inktober, it happens during the month of October.
Mm-hmm.
And so they have like um, a theme for every day of the month. And then you can do something with ink on that theme. So
Okay.
that was something
Is
like
it
you
okay?
can do it. You can do 365 days also of the year. You just set up like, I want to do one sketch a day, and then you set up a calendar with a theme for each day, and
Uh-huh.
you could do that. For
Oh,
me,
okay.
I just have participated in Inktober in like probably a couple of years. This year I missed it because I was super busy. But
Mm-hmm.
that's also a great way. Like you join a group who is doing um, something each day, and they're sharing their work. So that is a way to motivate you to do something every day.
Okay. Is it on Facebook?
I think they have a page on Instagram as well.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
not very frequent on Facebook. Most of the time I'm on Instagram because it's much easier to use. It's more visual, and so I'm not familiar. I'm sure they do have a page on Facebook as well. But you can see a lot of great work from
Oh, okay.
other
Yeah.
artists too who use ink. You can.
Inktober. Yeah.
It's
Okay.
not like you have to use ink, but because ink is easier to get you going, right? So they have
Right.
it as Inktober, but I do see a lot of people use color as well in that.
Right. I found it. It is on Instagram. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a great thing to do. And I think they're having something this year as well. I was not sure if I can keep up with that, so I haven't participated in the
Yeah.
365 sketches. But it's these are great things you can do, like to get you to do something every day. That's a good
Correct.
initiative.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to put all the links in the account so that people can take a look and go and explore them on their own time.
Yeah,
That's
it's definitely, even if you're not participating, you should follow their work, because there are so many great artists who are doing so good work. I mean, just seeing their work, you will get inspired to keep
yeah.
doing something
Yeah.
every day.
Like we say, we live we eat with our eyes, but the same thing also when you see beautiful things around you, you learn to appreciate them, and then that also makes your own life beautiful too. When you
Yeah. So
surround
even if
yourself,
you are
yeah,
not actually producing anything every day, even if you're
yeah,
seeing other people do something creative, it does have a positive effect on you. And
correct,
so that's why I started posting lot more videos. Initially on my Instagram, I used to post just like finished pictures, and I started posting a lot of like process videos of how I do my ink sketches. And I really got a lot of great feedback from people because visually seeing someone do something,
Yes.
it's much more enriching than just to see the end product. So really people have they have really liked all the videos that I've posted.
Yeah.
Of course, they're like time lapse videos, so they're really fast because
Mm-hmm.
this it takes a lot of time to keep adding these details, right? So
Right.
they see a really sped up video of what I'm doing, but it's still it's very effective to see how you're adding on the paper, and with each stage how your illustration is like changing. And so like you could record even if you're not posting it anywhere, record your videos. And I watch like as I'm after I'm done with recording, because I want to see like uh, when you're doing the illustration, you're like so involved with like that specific area that you're working on, right? But when you see a video of yourself working, you see like where you could have added something, or it helps you like in your next illustration where you can, what effect you can add to the illustration. So it gives you a whole picture of what you're working on.
Right. So you can see that you can add as much detail as you wish in these photos, in this picture.
Yeah. So now, like basically what I'm just adding, like on my ink, I'm not even thinking like as I'm talking to you, I'm just adding strokes where I feel like
Yeah.
it will make it look
Strokes,
good. And
dots, rectangles, like whatever. Yeah.
yeah, and you can even
Geometric shapes.
color it, like some portions you can color it. And just with ink, without watercolor also you can like you can just leave it like this. But yeah, if you want to give that contrast of color and black and white, you can definitely add watercolor, I think. And then I just go loose on my strokes. After some time, it's like you're not not following any particular um, shape or anything. It's just like to give that intricate, detailed finish to your sketch, right? So I just go with free strokes like this. So it's this is definitely it's a kind of Zentangle, but you're not working on a specific geometry. Like I know why Zentangle also is so famous and meditative is because you're just adding strokes and you keep
Right.
going over and over it, right? So mine, the kind of illustrations I do, it's kind of based on Zentangle, but I'm not working on just geometrical figures. I'm working on some illustration and adding strokes, kind of like how you do in Zentangle. So it's a combination. And if some people enjoy doing the stippling, I don't, because I have very poor eyesight, and I think stippling requires a lot more focus. So I do more of like strokes and maybe coloring. uh, I'm going to try, and I have to let you know once I do that. I'm going to try dip pens. There are like um, dipping in the ink and painting with those are also good to give you like really strong black uh, surfaces. Like with an ink fountain pen, coloring and shading the black surfaces, it takes a lot more time and lot more ink. But if you have a dip pen, you can do it much faster. So I'm looking into buying that and seeing if that I can add that to my ink sketching. Yeah, and this is something you don't even have to uh, sit in one place and do it. You can sit in any of your favorite spot in your home. You don't have that much material that you need to use, right? So sometimes I'm sitting and sketching in the living room, like if my son is working on something, I can still do the ink sketching. That's one of the reasons why I'm doing more of ink now, because watercolor, I can't move around that much. I
Yeah,
have to
it's
carry
pretty
all the
fast
material.
also. Yeah. I think
Yeah,
watercolor, because it's so fluid and you're putting what moves very fast.
yeah.
So a piece this size that you're doing, this is a square. I'm assuming it
Hmm.
would take somebody from start to finish, say about 2 hours. Would you say that?
Yeah, I think 2 hours. Yeah, you could say 2 hours. I'm doing a little more rough strokes today because I want to like show more of thing, but I would go more fine with my strokes if I would be working on it like a piece. So I don't mind putting in a few more hours if I can go more fine with where I'm putting my strokes, how close I want to do, or layer in more strokes to give that
Shadows. Yeah, you can
like
give
more
some
detailed
shadows.
effect. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it depends on like how detailed you're doing. You could do the same piece in like even do 6 hours on it, or you could do it in 1 hour too. So it depends on how much detail you're adding into it.
Right.
So I'm going to leave it at this for now with ink because I want to show how it would be with a contrast of on it. Okay, so I'm going to start the watercolor portion on this, and I'm just waiting to see if any of the ink is still wet, because if the ink is not dried, it will smudge even if it's waterproof ink.
Yeah.
The good thing about this paper is it absorbs the ink very quickly, so it doesn't stay wet. Like this is a slightly textured surface, so it's easier and it absorbs the ink. But if you have a smoother finish, it gives you more smooth strokes, but you
Right.
have to be careful because it takes longer for the ink to dry on a smooth surface.
Oh, okay.
And okay, so I'm going to just check one of the corners if they are dry enough to do watercolor. Yeah, so I'm just adding a light layer on this, and then
You can see the subtle yellows coming in.
yeah, and you can go much brighter too
Yeah.
with the color, because I'm just making sure that the ink is dry enough to be able to add more water.
Right.
And so now you just blend out with water the edges to give it that transparent shade, or and then you can blot out the brush, and then you can draw out the color. If you feel it's too dark, you want to blend it more, you can remove some of the paint in places that you want it to be a little more lighter. And then you can, since this is wet, if you want to mix colors, this is called a wet on wet technique, where your surface is wet and you add another color, and then you just let the watercolor blend the two colors, because it's still wet, right?
Yeah. So it just does its
So
own
it,
thing, right? It goes in whatever direction.
yeah, you just,
That's the organic piece. Yeah. Oh, it's looking so
yeah.
pretty. Yeah. Lovely. And then you're doing a bit of blending with the brush.
Yeah. So When it's wet on wet, you don't need to do a lot of blending. You just let the wet paint flow into each other. Because if
Right.
you do a lot of strokes, then it may not blend in so smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're doing wet on wet, you don't need to do a lot of strokes. But once the first layer has dried up, then maybe you have
Mm-hmm.
to do a little bit of strokes to blend the paint in.
Okay.
So for this, you have to be really quick with adding the paint because you don't want the first layer to uh, dry out. You want
Right.
it to be wet. And then after that, you can probably, with no paint on your brush, just water, you
Mm-hmm.
can uh, vary the tones of the color. So
Mm-hmm.
darker, lighter.
Okay.
And so I don't do a lot of color when I do the ink in
Mm-hmm.
this much of detail,
Mm-hmm.
because I still want my ink strokes to be the focus of my illustration.
Right.
I just add in a little color, and then
Mm-hmm.
the portion that I haven't done any ink, that is where, like the background, right? I have left it unworked with the ink. That's why
Right.
I want to do like the real watercolor to make the delicate blends of the color so that
Mm-hmm.
it really contrasts with your
Mm-hmm.
ink. So I can show you how that's done.
I think the good part is because I had taken a watercolor class a little while ago, and I found it like really hard to control the watercolor. So in this, what I'm finding it the way it is done, you have a lot of control over the color and the water where it's going.
Yes, and if you don't have any ink outlined, right, all
Mm-hmm.
your mistakes are visible in the watercolor. So that's why I was saying that when you're more comfortable with the blends of your watercolor, you can
Right.
go in for without ink. But now, because my ink is the focus of the illustration, watercolor is just adding color to it. You
Right.
don't have to be that perfect with your watercolor
Correct.
to be able to do it.
Yeah.
So you could just like, it's you can see where the mistakes are in ink and wash. But just plain watercolor, yes, you have to be more careful with, because once you put in, it's very difficult to get the paint off the paper.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you could still do some minor corrections, but you have to be really quick with watercolor.
Mm-hmm.
So, so this, I'm going to leave it as it is now with this much of color. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
work on the background,
Okay.
where I'm going to use the actual watercolor technique where you're putting
Water.
watercolor. I mean, going to put water and
Yeah.
then you put the
Paint.
colors to blend it in.
Right.
And I usually use a technique called negative painting,
Mm-hmm.
where you build on layers. So
Okay.
you start with a light layer,
Mm-hmm.
and then you add darker layers on top of it.
Okay.
But you're not painting, like I'm not going to be painting this leaf for it to be seen. I'm going to be painting the gaps in between the leaves for the leaf to be seen. So that's called a negative painting technique, where it's a negative painting. So the object that you want it visible, you're not painting that, but you're painting the edges around it for the object to pop out.
Pop out. Okay. Got it. Okay. So you're really painting the
But
empty spaces. Let's put it that way.
Exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
that's why it's called negative painting.
Okay.
But for that, you will have to wait for the layers to dry out. So once this base layer is dried out, then you
Mm-hmm.
can do the space in between. And
Mm-hmm.
then you can do many layers like that. So over the darker layer, you add another darker layer and then you build on it.
Okay.
But for that, you'll have to give enough of time for each layer to um, dry out and
Mm-hmm.
then start the next layer. So I might do one layer to show you what is the negative painting effect.
Yeah.
And see, if you go in with darker colors and you just let the paint flow, you don't
Yes.
have to do anything for blending the colors.
Right. And you need just a very little color. You don't need a lot, right?
Yeah, if you want like it to really blend, you can add a lot more color, but then it depends on like what shade you want. If you want it to become a deep orange, then you can add enough of color, like between yellow and red, to make the orange. But if you
Right.
want the yellow to dominate, then maybe you use a very light layer over it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I'm going to try. I'm not sure if this has dried. I don't think it's dried enough to start the next layer. If you use a dark background around what you want, so that edge is now more prominent because of the dark color that you use next to it.
Right.
And that is also a very meditative way of painting. I have seen people, it's you can create like really beautiful graphics out of it,
Mm-hmm.
uh, just doing the negative painting. Just have to keep adding layers and different colors. Like you can do a lot of fabric design with that type of that style, where
Mm-hmm.
you're adding layers. um, I have to see if I can find some examples of like you can I really love negative painting. It's not as complicated as watercolor. You just
Mm-hmm.
need to let your layers dry and then you have to build over it.
So it
So it
kind
is
of
still
gives a, yeah, it kind of gives a dimensional effect. Is that right?
yes, and you don't
Yes.
have to do that much of blending. Like
Right.
with watercolor, you have to do a lot of blending, right? You don't have to do so much with negative painting. So like if you're seeing, I'm adding some dark colors around these leaves
Yeah. So now you're
to
adding the
make
green, the
the
color to
edge
the
of the
leaves.
leaf.
Yeah, but you had already given it a background, correct?
Yes, so the
Yes.
lightest background I gave, and then
Mm-hmm.
you just add around the object.
Right.
And then once that is dried, you can still draw other leaves around in the darker surface. So then you can fill the gaps of those leaves. For
Correct.
example, I'm
Okay.
looking for my pencil. So, so once this has dried up, you
Mm-hmm.
can draw some leaves here. And now you're going to be painting between these gaps. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a second layer over this. And one of the illustrations that I showed you, that's what I had done, like just added layer upon layer. The lady with the bouquet. Ideally, I'd give more time for it to dry, but
Yeah.
that's you'd be adding more layers like that.
Right.
And it's fine. It doesn't have to be sharp edges. So even if it's blending like this, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then I go in, like add more color. If some areas I want it to be much brighter,
Mm-hmm.
I just add like concentrated colors around
Colors.
those
Right.
edges
Okay.
to make it more like where the black and white is, you add more color to it. It gives
Mm-hmm.
you a better contrast. And
Right.
then the outer edges, I try to leave it like very light and
So now wherever you have done yellow, so like if I'm looking at the top of this painting, above the yellow is all white space. So what are you going to do there?
I sometimes I just leave it like like
Like
loose
that?
edges like this.
Okay.
I
Okay.
don't do it till the edge, and then after the it has dried, I remove my pencil because I don't like to go all the way to the
To the
edge of the
end.
paper. So
Ah,
I like to leave it like loose, unfinished edges. It looks really good with
looks
watercolor if you
nice.
do
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
rather than go all the way to the edge.
Okay. Okay.
So I do the pencil outline, but I may not end up painting everything that I have penciled out.
Okay.
So after it dries, I just go in and then erase the
Mhm.
pencils that I'm not going to be painting over. So
Right.
let me show you the one that I did with that. Like if you, like if you see this, I'm not painting all the way, like
All the way to
maybe
the end.
one
Yeah.
edge just to frame it, I'll do it. But
Mm-hmm.
I try to leave it as loose edges like this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that makes it look much more like
Yeah, it looks really nice.
it makes makes it look more like watercolor where
Right.
it's not like a defined edge.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Like same with this one. So
Yes.
I just leave it unfinished here.
Yeah. Okay.
I you can do the finished framed piece also like how I've done here, but it's a totally different effect. So this I put the tape and I got like a really hard edge.
Clean
You
edge.
can do
Yeah.
that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it depends on what type, like what's your intent with your illustration.
Yeah. Actually, it looks, you're right. It looks much nicer when it is those loose edges. It gives it a really organic feel.
Yeah, and it you don't have to do a lot of painting as well. You can just, and if you feel it's too blank here, then you can just with
Yeah.
just your paint add some like suggestions of flowers or whatever
Mm,
just with the paint. So this is a dry painting. This is not wet on wet. So you would just take very light diluted paint, and then with that just like a suggestion of a flower in the background or something like
right.
that. You can, yeah, you can play with how you want. So your first layer is your ink, and then you build on that with a watercolor background. And then once that is done, you can do more like a detail, less blended version of watercolor where you're taking your brush with the paint, but in a very light manner, you're going to just draw something. So
Right.
these are like just adding more detail to it rather than. So once this is also dried, I would like do something like that on it so that it just doesn't look like blank edges. And the flowers are the best, you can do a lot with it. Like for architectural sketches, maybe you can't do this much of layers and thing, because it's all hard edges. But
Mm-hmm.
with the flowers or some natural landscapes, you can try all these
Yeah,
techniques.
you know what?
Yeah.
Nature is not perfect, so you can actually get away with quite a few things from with there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I feel like architectural sketch, you need to have a little bit more technical knowledge in terms of like how is the perspective set up, and uh, you need some of that information for it to like work for you. Like
Right.
there are people who really like to learn that as well. So I like learning perspectives, and that's the reason why I do a lot of architecture sketches, because perspective drawing is one of the bases for doing architecture sketches.
Mm-hmm.
But that is something you have to like take some training. So it's not, you can't like maybe if you want to unwind, that's not something I would suggest you do.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
more technical. And
Yeah, no, no, we do not want to stress people out more. It's
yeah,
just
so
that the whole idea is to really unwind, relax, have fun with color, and don't worry about the like the perfection that a lot of people think. Oh, I'm not an artist. I do a really bad job. Like it's yeah. And I guess the more you do it, the more you can improve on it. Like the Inktober, the one that you gave, if you do a bit of sketching or something every day, you will get better.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's all about I just see some of my sketches from a year ago, and it's definitely not as good
Yeah,
as I want it to be.
right,
So yeah, there's never you can always improve on your
right.
skills. Yeah, but this is definitely something that is very I would say calming, to do something like flowers, nature, start with some theme like that. And I had this problem where I was not finding like images that would inspire me. So then Pinterest is a good source for that.
Yes,
Like, just create your boards with different themes, and put your images there. So if there are, like, I have lots of images for architecture. um, I do a lot of sketches on sculpture, Buddha, and all of that, right?
mm-hmm.
So whatever you like, you can store the images.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever you feel like painting, then you're not looking for some inspiration at that time. You have
Yeah,
those
you
images
have those
saved, and
ideas.
then
Yeah,
you can, yeah, then
yeah,
you can start something when you want to paint. So that
yeah,
was really helpful for me, like having
right. It's looking so lovely. Loving the colors.
yeah, I didn't go with green because I just wanted to like blend it with the flowers. But yeah, you can do it doesn't have to even realistically be whatever the actual color of your
Oh yeah, you
painting
can
is.
do, yeah.
Like, you can do whatever you want and just keep. And so yeah, I can go with this for like another 2 hours and keep
Yeah,
adding
yeah,
layers.
yeah. I
So
think
it's,
people get the
you
idea.
just go
Yeah,
with, yeah.
yeah. Okay. All
And
right.
so if you see, like, with the waterproof ink, it's really very easy, that you don't have to worry that your ink is going to spread or smudge into your paints.
Right.
So that's a great thing to use the waterproof ink.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are some markers too that are waterproof, but
Yes.
I am not very familiar with any of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
so
I guess starting with with the same like the good old basics, basic watercolors is a good way. And then of course you can keep advancing as you keep exploring new materials.
yes.
Yeah.
And if you want to like really like make it really colorful and thing, then you can go really, now once it's dried up, you can go with one really really dark, something that you want to to catch the attention or something, like one or two places you can add some really bright colors. So
Right.
yeah, just build on it, like keep adding color where you want to add. But
Mhm.
yeah, there's no boundaries. Do what
Correct.
you
Yeah.
feel like you want to add to your thing.
Yeah.
So this is something like there's not much scope for doing that much of like here also you can layer it, but
Yes.
here you have plants, you have a door, so it's all very it's already planned and you can't do much. But if you're doing something like this, yeah, you can go for it, like do a lot of experimentation with any additional layers you want to add.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. All right. That is lovely. That is nice. I'm glad that we could connect, Suma, because I find a lot of people are very interested in watercolor painting, but the reason why they don't get into it, because watercolor painting on its own is pretty difficult. It's not easy because you've got to master that skill. But with this one, I think this is a good way to start, and then of course get into more complicated projects.
Yeah, I'm really intimidated sometimes when masterful watercolor painters, like
Mhm.
they just know where you have to put the stroke and
Yes,
how much of water you need to put.
exactly.
And so I'm also not very confident like I can do it to that level.
Mhm.
Probably one day I will, but till then I'm happy with like
Oh,
doing
this is
something like
lovely.
this. I'm
Yeah,
still doing watercolor, but you can experiment. So yeah, this will give a lot of confidence to beginners to just start with a little bit of color, and then when
right,
as you're going getting more confident, you can add more and more color, and then just totally get rid of the ink if you want one day. Just
right.
do the pencil outline and see how and the watercolor work without the ink. But ink
Right.
is something that you can start with because it'll give you more confidence to try the
Correct.
watercolors with
Yeah,
ink.
yeah. Nice. Okay, wonderful. So that is good. So Suma, now where can people find you? If they need to reach you, what is the best place to connect with you?
Yeah, so I'm currently most of my work is like on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
So they can find me on Instagram. All my work is there. And so my handle is Suma underscore sketches on
Mm-hmm.
Instagram.
Okay.
So they can definitely go and check out some of my work there. I have a website. I will send you the link because it's not like a really professional website. It's a very long
Yeah.
domain. So I will send you the link and you can probably put that with all my contact information.
Okay.
So most of my work is right now on Instagram. I have a Facebook page, but I'm not very active on Facebook because it's just too many things to keep up with.
Mm-hmm.
So most of my work is actually right now on Instagram or my
Yeah.
website.
Oh,
And if anyone has questions, you can um, reach out to me by email. It's sumartillustrations@gmail.com.
okay.
I'm happy to help with any material or any techniques that they're working on. I know I have got a lot of requests for people to like probably provide some Skillshare lessons or something. I'm trying to see if I can make maybe some demo videos with some
Yeah.
basic instructions like this so that it's helpful for people to learn. I'm still not very organized with that. So hopefully sometime soon I can have some classes or
Mhm.
tutorials
Yeah.
for people, really basic stuff with
Yeah.
ink and watercolor.
Right.
Yeah, I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to doing more of that in the coming 2022. That's my goal, to have some
Yeah.
tutorials and lessons.
March 2022, I will have the second summit, and hopefully we'll have Suma back for that one too. Having another,
Sure.
yeah. So I will
But
let,
in the meanwhile, anyone is free
of
to
course.
contact me by email if they are finding, they need some help with finding materials, or they have some questions on how things, how to get
Right.
started.
Okay.
I can help them with that.
Sounds good. Okay, thank you so much. I loved seeing that. I can still see the flower and the color blending. It is beautiful. It is just um, like for me personally, I am not a person who if even if you give me an instruction to do a crafting project, I will tend to move away from it. Like, you know what? Okay, fine. You've given me an instruction. I will make it my own. So
Yeah.
I find, yeah, I find a lot of relaxation. You don't want to get bound by rules that, oh God, it has to go in this direction, this direction. So that is, I think, the biggest, the beauty of this type of work is that you can just be yourself, right? You make it your own.
Yeah, it's just a starting point. Like, this
Yeah,
is what I ended up with after all the experimentation I've done, and the drawings that I have done. So this is what I feel I am comfortable with.
right.
But as you go, you can really, yeah, develop your own style. It's a starting point. So
Definitely.
yeah, you can definitely do great work. And if not, also, even if you don't do anything, if it relaxes you, yeah, just do 10 minutes of this every day, and you will definitely feel much more
Yes,
stress free,
certainly.
relaxed. And yeah,
Yeah.
so my advice, my takeaway from this is, don't worry about what you're doing. Try to do it at least every day.
Mm-hmm.
So you will develop a habit of spending time on yourself. And then as you're going, you will build a passion for it, because you're spending time on it, you're learning and you're discovering things. It's exciting. And then as you get better, it becomes something that you want to do, and you have something to fall back on when you're really stressed. And I'm really lucky in that way, that I have somehow figured out what I can do to
Yeah.
make myself,
Happy.
I know many people are like still finding that what's their passion, or what they are
Yes.
would like to do
Yeah.
to de-stress. So I'm really hoping that people can stumble upon something that will give them like the thing that this really is going to help me with
For sure. Yeah.
relaxing. And yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Suma. That was lovely. So with that, we end this presentation on like watercolor and art. And I do hope that people give it a try and see what you can do. And yeah, so send an email to Suma or send an email to myself. Share your pictures, share your photos in the Facebook group, and I will put the information on getting into the Facebook group where you can share whatever you have done. So that would be like lovely.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity, Alka. I really had a great time, and I'm so glad I could do this.
Yeah, no, it was fun. It was fun watching. So I'm pretty sure when you actually do it, it's going to be even much more fun there too.
Sure.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.